So you might remember that earlier this week, Liv was talking about what a super contribution is. And she was also talking about the different places they might come from. Over the coming weeks, we are going to be talking about the two main types of contributions. So there's concessional contributions and non-concessional contributions. There are a few other types which we'll talk about later, but these are the main two. So today, we're just going to talk about what kind of contribution would be considered a concessional contribution. So the main kind of contribution that would fall into sort of the concessional contributions bucket, so to speak, is going to be employer contributions. Now, it's actually irrespective of whether or not you've entered into a salary sacrifice arrangement with your employer. So that's where, you get your mandatory super from your employer, which is also a concessional contribution. But you also might say to your employer, hey, I'd actually like to boost my super myself, and I want you to make some extra payments to my super fund in a salary sacrifice arrangement. But of course, the important thing to remember for this video is that whether or not it's an employer mandated contribution, so your super guarantee, that 12%, or a salary sacrifice contribution that you are voluntarily making but asking your employer to do for you, it doesn't matter. They are both considered concessional contributions. The other main kind or type of concessional contribution is called a personal concessional contribution or a personal deductible contribution. So what that means practically though is you've added some money to your super fund. So that can be for anyone who has an Israel retail fund. It's simple as a direct debit or a BPay, whatever. If you do have an SMSF, you can often do it through online banking, whatever you want. Some people still use checks. I don't know. But what you'll do is you've added some money to your super fund, and then you actually tell your super fund, hey, I'm going to claim a personal tax deduction for that, i.e. I'm going to tell the taxman, hey, I had X dollars in tax to pay, but I'm going to claim a few deductions, and one of them includes a deduction for a personal contribution to super. And this type of contribution would also be considered a concessional contribution. So those are the main types or kinds of concessional contributions. So those being the employer contributions you're getting. So whether that be your super guarantee or mandated superannuation payments from your employer, or if you entered into a salary sacrifice arrangement with your employer, both of these would be considered concessional contributions and fall under all the rules that govern concessional contributions. The other kind was the one we talked about where you're putting some money into super to claim a personal tax deduction. The two really important things to remember, and we'll go into more detail about them later, but two important things to remember is one, these contributions are taxed when they are received by the super fund at 15%, and at the moment they're subject to a $30,000 a year cap. So you can only put up to $30,000 in a year. There are some rules around looking back a few years, but we'll talk about that in a later video. Thanks for listening.